welcome everybody to the Korea Society for attending this very special event. My name is Tom Byrne. I'm the president of the Korea Society. The Korea Society, its board members, and staff are very pleased and honored to host the Speaker of the Republic of Korea's National Assembly, the Honorable Chung Sye-kyun. Thank you for coming here. We are also honored to have the ranking members of the major parties in the National Assembly, Representative Jung Jin-suk of the Saenuri Party, Representative Woo Sang-ho of the Minju Party, and Representative Park Ji-won of the People's Party. This is the first time that floor leaders of the ruling and opposition parties have accompanied a parliamentary chief on an overseas trip. We think it is very fitting to have such broad political representation from Korea's National Assembly, using the Korea Society as a forum to communicate with the New York City and even a wider American audience in view of the press participation here today. This is consistent with our mission to promote awareness, understanding, and cooperation between the people of Korea and the United States, and we do this as an independent and nonpartisan organization. I would like to note that the Korea Society will be celebrating its 60th anniversary, or its Hwangap, next year. For more than 6 decades, the US-ROK alliance has served as an anchor of stability and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula and in the Asia-Pacific region, a region that will dominate global affairs in the 21st century. Over these decades, US-ROK relations have grown to encompass shared political, economic, and cultural values. The US-ROK relationship is also based on shared prosperity. The Korea-US Free Trade Agreement has large economy-wide effects in both countries, and it is also a counterweight to current arguments voiced by some all along the political spectrum in the US doubting the benefits of free trade, and the US International Trade Commission has actually cited the KORUS Free Trade Agreement as providing some of the largest benefits of any FTA the US has entered into. In sum, Korea is an ally with whom we have great mutual understanding, shared interests, and appreciation, and I look forward to Speaker Jung's talk here today. Thank you.
Please welcome the Speaker of the National Assembly to the Republic of Korea, Speaker Chung Sye-kyun.
President Thomas Bond, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be given this opportunity to share my thoughts with members of the Korea Society and the other audience, which has been playing catalytic roles in fostering Korea-US friendship. Last Sunday marked the 15th anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy. On behalf of the Korea people and the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea, I'd like to pay tribute to all those who lost their lives and to the families who lost their loved ones in the terror attacks. I would also like to offer my respect for the strength and the resilience of the American people for building the One World Trade Center, a new tower of hope built on the site of the attack. The Korea Society, which was established under the leadership of General James A. Van Fleet in 1957, will celebrate 60 years next year, noting its dedication and service as a bridge between our two countries. Throughout its long history, which almost coincides with that of the ROK-US alliance, I would like to express my deep gratitude for your efforts to enhance the bilateral relations between our two countries. I especially also appreciate your meaningful and constructive programs designed to foster mutual understanding between young people in the two countries. On a personal note, the U.S. holds a special place in my heart. After graduating from college in Korea, I worked for an international trading company. Back then, Korea, a country with scarce natural resources, was making every effort to promote international trade as a driver of economic growth. As a young businessman working in overseas offices of a Korean trading company, I spent my 30s in New York and Los Angeles. At that time, the U.S. was enjoying its new heyday under Reaganomics based on a strong belief in a free market economy. The U.S.-led global free trade system provided Korea new opportunities for growth. I also gained valuable experience of studying in the U.S. education system and watching the dynamism of the world over the shoulder of a giant called the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, incubated in 1953, at the end of the Korean War, the Korea-U.S. alliance began as an unbalanced alliance. Although it was created under the unusual circumstances of the Korean armistice, it is now considered one of the most successful alliance relationships. The prosperity of South Korea, which has successfully transformed itself from an aid recipient to an aid donor, would have never been possible without the solid foundation of the alliance over the last 60 years or so. Witnessing the level of development on their returning journey to Korea after many decades, those Korean War veterans said they were touched by the remarkable results of their sacrifices of putting their lives on the line. Even in this moment, the ROK and US soldiers are standing shoulder to shoulder to protect peace on the Korean Peninsula with ready to fight tonight spirit. The people of South Korea deeply appreciate their support and commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, the ROK Alliance has contributed tremendously to maintaining peace on the Korean Peninsula. However, it is still faced with unrelenting challenges from North Korea. That is why it needs to be further solidified despite consistent and successful outcomes of our cooperation for the last 60 years. Even in the face of UN sanctions and other international restrictions, North Korea has devoted national energy and resources into advancing its military capabilities, such as nuclear weapons and missiles, rather than in upgrading living standard of people. Its continued reinforcement of the armed forces and provocations has put the Korean Peninsula's security in danger more than ever. Its fourth nuclear test earlier this year has rightly aroused international concern. The successful test firing of SLBM or submarine launched ballistic missiles could be a game changer in the regional security dynamics. Furthermore, just 3 days before my departure to US, North Korea conducted its fifth nuclear test. With this test, it seems to have come very close to miniaturizing nuclear warheads. North Korea equipped with nuclear attack capabilities using missiles has nearly become reality. Cross-party leaders of the National Assembly, including myself, all reasonably opposed to such provocative actions and threats to peace on the Korean Peninsula and the international order. We share the view that international sanctions against such actions are inevitable. However, the problem is that a wrong judgment or decision by North Korea with such dangerous weapons at hand might lead to devastating consequences on the Korean Peninsula. That is why the people of South Korea are deeply anxious about the increased sophistication of the North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. Under the circumstances, the US and ROK forces are required to retain a constant combat readiness posture within the framework of the robust Korea-US alliance. Also, the alliance needs to show with no uncertainty its will and capability to respond with immediate destruction in the event of any misjudgment or miscalculation on the part of North Korea. However, sanctions and pressures alone are difficult to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. Its regime is more solid in terms of its survivability, and it might look from outside. It should never be overlooked that even after millions of its people died from hunger and despite international pressures and sanctions, the North Korean regime still stands today. I have a good understanding of the background of Obama administration's strategic patience policy. Looking back, however, it seems that this policy has ended up giving North Korea time to advance their nuclear and missile technologies. What I'm saying is not that sanctions are unnecessary, but that changing circumstances require a flexible approach. To jump to the conclusion, I believe that we need to take a dual attack approach of using both sanctions and engagement. Distinguished guests, let us now turn our attention to Northeast Asia. Despite the global financial crisis, Northeast Asia has continued to serve as the engine of the world economy, and regional economic interdependence has been deepening at a rapid pace. However, regional security faces growing instability due to lack of trust. This is the so-called Asia paradox. Threats to peace and stability in Northeast Asia include not only the North Korea's nuclear and missile capabilities, but also historical territorial disputes between the countries in the region, as well as transnational crimes and natural disasters. With this threats continue to escalate, regional security faces growing instability. The rising China is especially an important factor, including the regional dynamics. China, which has undergone a remarkable evolution from the world's factory to world's market, is intent on expanding its influence in East Asia based on its massive economic power. Some people say that while Washington wants South Korea to join its strategy of greater engagement with Asia, Seoul, being wary of Beijing, is taking a cautious approach. I will not deny that there exists such a difference in our perception. However, one thing that is clear is that the ROK-US alliance is a matter of life or death for South Korea. That is especially true with the continuing threats from North Korea. South Korea does not have the capability to deter against North Korea's ever-advancing nuclear program. That is why we need to further enhance the trust between militaries of the two countries. Ladies and gentlemen, North Korea's nuclear program is a fatal threat to South Korea. We cannot live with North Korea's nuclear weapons over our heads. South Korea opposes the North nuclear development more decisively than any other country in the world. The matter must not be left to the whims of political strife. For South Korea, it is a matter of life and death. South Korea, the United States, and the international community have placed strong pressure on North Korea for its wrong choices. The main purpose of sanctions against North Korea is to draw Pyongyang to negotiating table and convince it to abandon its nuclear ambitions. But it's not so clear whether the pressure on Pyongyang has worked well. Despite the UN Security Council Resolution 2270 considered the toughest non-military measure against a specific country in the UN's 70 years history, North Korea fired SLBM and conducted the fifth nuclear test. Already, 3 months have passed since the deadline for submitting the implementation report for the resolution, but thus far, less than a third of UN members have turned in their report. North Korea should pay an appropriate price for its miscalculation, but it would be misguided to believe that sanctions are the answer to everything. It is also wishful thinking to see the defection of a handful of North Korean elites as a sign of regime collapse. Pyongyang has rapidly advanced its nuclear and missile capabilities, posing a challenge to policy of strategic patience. The fifth nuclear test has reduced the average time interval between the North Korea's nuclear tests from 3 years to 6 months. Historically, Cuba, Iran, and Myanmar also faced international sanctions for a long time. yet their regimes managed to survive. Regardless of whether it would happen or not, regime collapse in North Korea entails monumental challenges, and South Korea, the party with the most at stake, is not well enough prepared for it, along with its unpredictable repercussions. The best way forward is to exercise sanctions and engagement strategy simultaneously. While slapping sanctions on the North, the Resolution 2270 also calls for peaceful resolution of the North Korean nuclear issue through dialogue. With sanctions in place, leverage over North Korea's key decision makers should be ramped up. To this end, the Iran nuclear deal is worth looking at. The deal was reached after marathon negotiations between the P5+1 and Iran. I believe that such multilateral engagement is needed to induce change in North Korea. 7 years have passed since the six-party talks came to a deadlock, and over that time, North Korea has never ceased its nuclear and missiles program. The consequences are now being felt. Nevertheless, I believe that the experience of the six-party talks will remain a valuable asset in our journey toward a peaceful Korean Peninsula. Distinguished guest, the vicious cycle of the arms race in Northeast Asia does not correspond to the long-term interests of countries in the region. Such arms race will be a stumbling block to regional cooperation and will lead to the security paradox, where the security environment gets worse despite the tightened security. At this moment, the most crucial thing is to reinforce the role of diplomacy. In this regard, I felt compelled to initiate a dialogue among the parliaments of the region, particularly those from the six-party talks countries, in order to alleviate any security instability brought on by situations on the Korean Peninsula and Northeast Asia. I will send a letter and proposal to the speakers of the parliaments from the six-party talks countries step by step. Such dialogue will complement and facilitate discussions carried out at the government level. The final objective of the initiative is to resolve North Korea's nuclear issues and to bring peace on the Korean Peninsula. In addition, a parliamentary dialogue will help ease tensions in the region. By broadening communication channels, it will help build up trust and present a vision of peace and shared prosperity. When compared with ongoing government talks in the region, the parliaments can take a more flexible approach in their dialogues. Therefore, the interparliamentary dialogues can contribute to strengthened intergovernmental communication. In addition, the parliaments are better positioned than their governments to encourage participation and cooperation from civil society and private sector. Distinguished guests, all the challenges we face, such as Pyongyang's provocations, discord over issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula, and the U.S. Expectations of an increased South Korean role in the alliance will vanish if the two Koreas are reunified. The U.S. has achieved several diplomatic breakthroughs in its relations with so-called rogue states, which once posed serious challenges to its foreign policy. A dictatorship was put to an end in Libya, a historic deal was sealed with Iran, and diplomatic relations were normalized with Cuba. These represent some of the U.S. most exceptional diplomatic accomplishments. In 2012, when President Obama visited Korea, the leaders of our two countries reaffirmed their commitment and support for a peaceful reunification of the two Koreas. Many Koreans remember the active cooperation and support that the U.S. gave in the German unification process. Koreans expect the U.S. to perform a similar role for the Korean unification. The Berlin Wall was torn down much earlier than even experts anticipated. It happened mainly due to close diplomatic coordination between the U.S. and West Germany in convincing other stakeholders. The Korea-U.S. alliance has been a great success. It will rise to an even higher plane if our concerted efforts can lead to reunification. Our two countries should join forces to convince neighboring countries and engage with Pyongyang, paving the path toward reunification. Distinguished guests, looking ahead, the alliance faces three tasks. First is to maintain a firm defense posture against North Korea's existing threats. Second is to encourage Pyongyang to sit at the dialogue table while pursuing engagement with the North. Last but not least is to elevate the alliance to another level to brace it for changing situation in a unified Korea and beyond, as well as new world order. Stability on the Korean Peninsula and increased chances of reunification will enable the alliance to reach farther beyond the Korean Peninsula. We will stand shoulder to shoulder as equal partners to share our responsibilities in addressing common international challenges. Recently, we listened closely to the voices of ordinary American voters in the hotly contested presidential campaign. Korea will play its role as a mature and equal partner with the U.S. I'm confident that our enduring alliance will keep moving forward in a spirit of mutually respectful communication, not in a one-way communication. In the past, Korea underwent two major turns of fate when the U.S. scaled down its focus on the Korean Peninsula. Therefore, if the United States shifts its gear toward isolation policy in place of engagement policy on the Korean Peninsula and in the East Asia, it definitely would be a big concern for the Korean people. I firmly believe that staying engaged in East Asia and fostering the forward-looking Korea-U.S. alliance serve the national interest of the U.S. as well as that of Korea. Distinguished guests, although Europe experienced two world wars, it established the regional economic community and now is developing into the regional political community. In spite of the deep historical wound, mutual understanding and cooperation have created the European Union. However, Northeast Asia is still in the middle of the Cold War order and is at a new crisis point. But every crisis presents an opportunity. The region will assume a vital role in promoting global peace and shared prosperity in the 21st century. To this end, I believe that interparliamentary dialogue I have proposed will generate meaningful progress in overcoming the Asia paradox, resolving North Korea's nuclear issue, and nurturing peace in the region. If the initiative is to become a success, it should be underpinned by a strong ROK-US alliance. Let me close by stressing that the Korea-US alliance should aim higher than a security alliance and economic alliance in order to become an alliance for global values. Once again, I thank you, President Thomas Bond, and other members of the Korea Society and other audiences for giving me this great opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming, and I'd like to particularly thank Speaker Chung, Representative Chung, Representative Wu, and Representative Park for coming here. Speaker Chung started his talk on a somber note, making remarks on September 11th. I'd like to bring a little more cheer and wish everybody happy Chuseok, and particularly the representatives here who are giving up their holiday to visit the U.S. and help solidify U.S.-Korea relations. So thank you very much.
Thank you.